All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast. I'm your host, Alaina, and today I have Adam McChesney here with me to talk marketing and all things about personal branding. So I'm really excited for you guys to get access to him. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, of course, Alaina. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur, or like what did your story look like coming up as an entrepreneur, starting your own business and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is no. I guess the short answer is no. The long answer is I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So my dad has owned his own law firm on and off for almost 30 years.
Wow.
My grandparents own my grandpa's still around and working at a bakery here in St. Louis that they took over when he was 16 or 17. So it's a staple here in St. Louis. And my other grandpa was an architect and owned his own company as well. So even though I felt like I didn't get a lot of exposure to like actually what entrepreneurship was, based on how I grew up, based on like my nature and my skill set and who I am, I'm not surprised I got here. So
Mhm.
grew up and did okay in school, went to college, somehow got better grades in college, but I think most of that had to do with I took a lot of high school credits. And I was a business major, so I started to actually enjoy school in college because I was studying things that ultimately reflected around what I was passionate about. And so I
Mhm.
went to school for sports management and marketing and realized about halfway through I didn't want to work in professional sports because I did an internship there, but it was kind of too late to turn back. So I graduated college, kind of stumbled through my first year and a half after college working at a job that I had an internship with to kind of just take a job after college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Then I moved back to St. Louis. So I was living about 2 hours away and I got into medical device sales. So I worked for a small medical device company here in St. Louis, selling products and reagents for life science research. And then I got on with a company called ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with the CPAP equipment, the masks, the devices, I sold that for a little over 3 years and managed a $25 million a year territory and was really good at it, but ultimately found my way into digital marketing in 2018. So I built that up on the side and then went full time in digital marketing in 2020.
That's amazing. I love that you went from sales to marketing because I think if you understand sales, you'll be really good at marketing. And for myself as well, it was like I didn't know much about sales, but I knew some of it. But I knew that I needed more information on what the marketing side of things looked like. Because for myself, I'm in a company that doesn't advertise traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
We're not like pushing ads everywhere. Like you're not going to see us on TV. We do like sponsorships, and that's how we get our brand out there is just going out and, doing the right thing and building it on referrals pretty much. So it's very different when I'm like, okay, well, how do I build my own personal brand? And what's that going to look like for me? So I started taking social media courses and stuff, and I was just like, I have no desire to do any of this. But I know it's something that I have to get better at. So I was building my World Financial Group business on the side while I was a heavy equipment operator. So it's funny how you were doing sales and doing something else on the side as well. And I think a lot of people are doing that nowadays, but at the same time, they were kind of in that same boat as you were just talking about. Like, okay, I wasn't necessarily happy with where I was at, but I was kind of stuck there. So what was that mindset shift for you where you were like, okay, you know what? This just isn't working. I need to try something different because I know that that's not where I'm supposed to be. What was that like for you?
Yeah, another really good question. So I got on at ResMed at the age of 26 in a new introductory like support level sales role that they were trying out in the company. And they were basically like, hey, if you do really good and you hit your numbers and like you obviously follow the rules and things like that, in 3 to 5 years, you'll have an opportunity likely at a promotion to a key account manager. So I got in within 5 months. The rep ahead of me in St. Louis actually took another job. And so they were sitting there, they're like, we already have somebody that like was young, hungry, had more experience than a lot of the other support level representatives. Let's potentially interview him to see if he's the right fit for the future. And so I interviewed for that role, hoping I was going to get it, but like didn't have a lot of confidence that I was going to do it because I was 10 years younger at that time than the youngest key account manager. So I was like, there's no way, like, there's just no way. But ultimately, I ended up getting it. And so at 27 years old, my first full year in that role, I made $200,000 in that position after making 75 the year before and 42 at my last company. So over the course of like 2 years, I like 5x my take home.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, what is actually going on? So I almost had this like identity crisis. Like, do I deserve this? Like I have all this money I've never had before. I didn't like go and spend it luckily or anything like that. But I thought growing up, $100,000 a year. I don't know why, but I thought like that was making it. And of
Right.
course, now that like with the economy and inflation and all that stuff, like that's nothing, unfortunately, right? So I started to think about the next level because I'm a visionary and all those things. And that next level was like a little bit more money, but a lot more managerial duties and responsibilities with a lot more travel than I was already doing. So I just said like, hey, there's got to be another way. And so I was sitting in a hotel room in 2018 in Kansas City right before Thanksgiving, and I typed in how to make money online, and I got retargeted by an ad on Facebook that essentially taught me digital marketing. I bought the course, started to go to work over 2 years, and then the rest is kind of history.
That's so cool. Yeah, Andy Frisella was actually talking about this on one of the podcasts I listened to this morning. And he was said that most people that are making $100,000 a year, like he said, something like 70% of them are still living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man, like groceries are expensive. It's crazy. And I live on Vancouver Island, and the housing market here is insanity. Like I just moved to the island from Fort McMurray, and the Fort McMurray is like oil sand country, like big incomes, big money, but the housing market is cheaper there than it is on Vancouver Island, where the income is like peanuts. And I'm sitting here in my financial business going, how do people do it? I'm like, I don't understand how they come from making $250,000 combined income a year, to not being able to save money, to moving to a place where the average household income is 70,000, household income is 70,000, and the grocery bills and the rent bills, because no one can afford to buy houses, um, it's like crazy. And you meet 20, 30, 40-year olds who still don't own their own homes and stuff like that because they just can't. And it's really frustrating from a financial business standpoint to sit here and go, hey, I'm going to sit here and teach you everything you know about saving money. And they're like, well, there's just no money to save.
Yeah.
Like all my money's going out. So I think a lot of people are turning to doing a secondary business, which I love because I did it myself and you've done it, and it's obviously doable. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people feel like they have to jump in head first and just like go full throttle into that new business when they know nothing about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's one of the downfalls that people come across is the fact that they don't have to do that. Like you said, it took you 2 years to be able to transition full time. Me too. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and it was really frustrating to quit my job and give up that $100,000 a year income to go full time in my business and make 50 grand. And I was like, $50,000. Like I was like pumped because I didn't have
Yeah.
to go and work 16-hour days. Like I could work 12-hour days for myself and still do well financially. And then I started growing my income and growing my income and growing my business. And now I'm opening my own branch, and it's just so different when you're actually able to take a chance on yourself and go, okay, let's go for it. So one of my friends, Rassi, I've interviewed her twice on my show. She just posted yesterday after 9.5 years of running her business part-time, she's full-time. And I was like, yeah, girl, like get it. Because it's like so cool to just to watch people transition from being an employee and being stuck and limited in where they're at with their income and where they're at with their ability to put the time into their own business, to go full time with their business and see how much more they can do in their life. So I love it. It's just so much more fun. I don't know.
It's a world of fun. A roller coaster, but a world of fun.
Roller coaster is an understatement. Have you read The Entrepreneur's Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy?
I've listened to it on the audiobook.
Man, when I first read that book, it was like maybe 5 years ago. So I was already like 3 years into business. And I'm like, why didn't I read this so much sooner? Because
Yeah.
that's one of the books that I would highly recommend people reading. And like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just understanding the entrepreneur's mentality versus being an employee.
Mm-hmm.
And those two books changed my life for sure. The Compound Effect is
Oh,
also
yeah.
good. Anyways, so I know that people want to focus on building their own personal brand, but how would you start that? Like, what would you do to kind of solidify how you want to show up on, let's say, social media?
So I think a lot of people overthink what a personal brand is. And there's levels to this, as there's levels with anything. But whether you know it or not, you have a personal brand. Your personal brand is just what other people think about you when they hear your name or when they see you online. All of those different things. Obviously, the more active you are in posting content, doing podcasting, being a guest on podcasts, speaking at events, things like that, the more prevalent your personal brand is ultimately going to be. But about 3.5 years ago, right after I went into entrepreneurship full time, I knew very quickly that I was going to have to start posting every single day, twice a day on Facebook, and then grow other platforms and do things, because I went from medical device sales, where I had one competitor and they had to basically, like, our customers had to buy our product or their product. And our product was really good, and I was a really good account manager. So things started to just kind of fall into place. Well, then I went into medical or digital marketing full time, and there's hundreds of thousands of competitors.
Mhm.
My clients are all over the country now, which is a great thing, but it's also a blessing and a curse, because anybody, like, my clients can work with anybody anywhere, and there's freelancers, there's people that they can hire within their companies, there's small agencies, medium-sized agencies, and large agencies. So I had to find a way to stick out and ultimately create a personal brand that people know, like, and trust me. And it just opens the door to them doing business with us on the digital marketing side.
Mhm. That's really good. I love that. Just finding a way to stick out. Because when people are looking for a financial advisor like myself, it's like, okay, well, why would I pick Alaina over somebody else, right? And I'm actually in an office with another financial advisor firm, and I'm like, oh, I love it, because like I know every time I can replace their products for better. And it's just like
Mhm.
gives you that confidence, but it's like, okay, well, they have 20 years experience in this industry. I have 8.
Yeah.
They've been in Port Alberni for 20 years. I've been here for 4 months, you know? So it's like, how do I gain that market share for myself? Um, what do I do to stand out? What am I doing to be different? Well, I'm getting in front of realtors. I'm getting in front of accountants. I'm getting in front of people who I can do events and stuff with. So I'm doing an event in April. I know this will air the beginning of March, but I'm going to be doing an event in April. 2 events actually, one on growth and one on balance. And the one on balance, I'm going to call What's Balance? Because as an entrepreneur, you'll learn that there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah.
It's that roller coaster in your business. But I think that partnering with certain individuals in your community is huge when it comes to building a strong business. And when you can show people what you have to offer and just go, this is why you need to work with Adam, or this is why you need to work with Alaina, they're going to spread the word for you. And like I said, I think building a referral based business is huge. But if you're not showing up online, you're doing it wrong, right? Like there's just so much to be gained from putting yourself out there. People can build trust with you. People can like learn who you are as a person and what you stand for just by looking through your social media or looking through your podcast. And I think when I started podcasting, I was so nervous. I was like, Andy, what do you mean you want me to start a podcast? And I remember the Arte call. I started the podcast November 2019, and it was just like, do something different than you're doing today. That was his advice to me. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to write a book. Well, I started podcasting and I loved it so much. The book kind of just like took forever. It took me 3 years to publish it.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't feeling like I knew enough in order to like put myself out there and be like, this is the advice I would give you
Mhm.
to be a successful entrepreneur or just to be like a successful human in general. And even right now, like you probably can't tell all that much, but I have COVID. So I'm like, I'm going to do whatever it takes today to bring my full energy. Right. So I went for a walk this morning. I listened to a good podcast. I put myself in a higher state of mind so that when I'm going into the office today, I'm not just like feeling like shit and like giving that to my audience or like bringing that kind of energy in. I'm trying to do what I can to feel good and take care of myself and hydrate, and do that kind of stuff so that I'm able to give that content a whole new level, right? So I don't know, it's just putting yourself out there, like you said, and just getting known for, hey, this is why you choose Alaina, because she'll do whatever it takes. I switched my appointment this morning that was supposed to be in person to a Zoom meeting because I was like, hey, kind of sick. You probably shouldn't come into my office.
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm going to do what I can to still keep my appointments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, one of the things you said there as well is just the overarching, like, whatever you want to call it, like lack of self-belief that I think all of us entrepreneurs have. We look at other people, right? So like on this morning on my podcast in person, I'm sure you probably have heard of Ben Newman, who used to co-host with Andy on the MF CEO project. I interviewed him in person, and
Cool.
I'd been trying to get him on my podcast for a very long time, and it was just like the persistence of all of those things. We got to start talking on the podcast, and I'm just like, I almost feel, well, I felt super uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm in the room with this guy. And, he's like, you can't have that mindset, right? Because there's people that Ben is in the room with that he's also like, wow, I feel uncomfortable. So at every level, we're always going to feel some type of uncomfortability, but that's what makes us better. We have to get to that next level. So now I'm like, okay, I know Ben. I built a little bit of a relationship with him, and let's go find the next one, right? Let's go find the next person that's like that next level. And I think that's where we truly win, or we just stay complacent and stay where we're at. But as entrepreneurs, we typically don't enjoy staying where we are.
Yeah. Well, that's another reason I love 75 Hard. And I secretly was like, Andy, you want to interview me on your podcast because I finished Live Hard, even through all the shit that I went through and like
Yeah.
losing multiple pregnancies and like boom, 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 boom. Everything was just like, and it's like, I still got up. I still did it. I still, was able to complete Live Hard last year in the hardest fucking year of my life. I did it. And so I'm like, okay, am I where I want to be right now? No, not at all. I've put on a little bit of weight. I'm frustrated about that. I'm sick right now, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let that hold me down. I'm
Mhm.
just going to own the fact that I am a fucking champion and
Yeah.
like just keep going and pursue my dreams because that's what Pursuit of Relentless is all about, is trying to find that next level of yourself that is in there. I call it
Absolutely.
my beast mode.
Yeah. No, kudos to you. That's amazing.
Yeah, man, it's been a journey, like you said, but that's the thing. Like, if you just let it keep you down and just keep, taking the punches and taking the punches and not doing anything to get back up, you're just going to stay down. So
Mm.
that's why I love 75 Hard and doing that challenge. It's not about getting fit. Yeah, you get fit during the process because you're drinking a gallon of water a day and watching your habits and exercising every day. But the thing that really sticks with me is the accountability to yourself to go, hey, am I choosing today to be excellent? Am I choosing today to put myself out into the world and go, here's a progress picture of what my body looks like today, or am I sitting there reading a book that's going to build my mindset, or am I watching Netflix? You know?
Mm.
So we all have choices that we have to make every day. And if we choose okay, I want to do something different, then we're not living that insanity mindset of everything's going to change for me. It's all going to change for me. Well, not if you don't do something different, right? So, understanding, like you said, understanding what your personal brand is and what you're putting out there is so important. Whether you're showing up for it on social media or not, it doesn't matter. It's what you're putting out into the world that matters, right? And people are going to know that you are strong, you are independent, you are going for it, regardless of what is pushing you down. And like December, I lost my pregnancy at almost 6 months. And I was like, fuck, like I was just so down and out and frustrated. And I just was feeling super shitty about myself. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I attract abundance? And then I was like, wait, because I have this super victim mentality of going, why don't I instead change it and go, what can I do to get better? What can
Mm,
I do to have a healthy pregnancy? What can I do to, push myself in the direction I want to go? So I cut out gluten and sugar and like just have been focused on my water intake and my reading and exercising every day. And I feel a million times better, just like little things like that. When you're putting yourself in those states of abundance mentality or like, I can attract whatever I want to attract to myself, you will. So
mm,
that's why I love understanding what your core values are and understanding what you're trying to accomplish. And I've shown this a few times, but I have it just sitting on my desk. So it's like, who am I being today? Excellencia Bell, the best version of myself, or
yeah.
who's the worst version of myself? And
Yeah.
I love just going into that mentality of like, okay, I can choose today if I'm going to be lazy and frustrated and sit here in my pain, or am I going to do what it's going to take to get me ahead and be excited and be happy and be optimistic for the future and just like a leader of leaders. Like that's one of the things on there, right? I want to be respected. I want to be honorable. I want to be a legend. And I can't create that life for myself if I just keep staying down. And then I have my teammates that are like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're back in the office. And I'm like, well, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like New Year's Day, sitting here like organizing my office because I'm like, I want to go into this year strong and empowered and not frustrated and not down on myself. And I think that when you just establish that that's your brand, like you can put that out there and be like, all right, I'm going to take control of my life.
Mm,
And that inspires so many people to do the same for themselves. Or it, like Ed says, it gives them permission to do that for themselves.
absolutely.
It's so strong just to be like, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to put myself out there, and this is what I stand for? And that's why I love that you're like, your personal brand is just you.
Yeah.
It's just who you are.
Authentic. It's authentic. It's real. It's like the thing that we all have that's so unique. So like I teach business owners how to create or start or elevate whatever with their personal brand. And they're trying to figure out like how to fancy it up and do all these things. And like that's needed at times, right? But a lot of times it's just showing up and being you. Because if you're somebody online and then somebody does business with you offline or online, but you're behind the social media, right? And you're not that person, or they feel as if you're not that person, doesn't really matter, then it ultimately creates a falsification of what perceived reality was. And so that's where a lot of people just go wrong is they try to be somebody that they're not. They try to act as if they've done things that they haven't in order to show off. But it's going to come full circle one way or the other if you don't take it seriously.
Yeah, big time. Well, that's the thing. Like, you meet these people and you realize after you're like in that state where, like you were saying with Ben, it's like, holy cow, this person is like hardcore, like
Yeah.
you're just sitting next to David Goggins being like, okay, buddy, like you're super hardcore. But then they're like, yeah, I'm still a human,
Mm-hmm.
and like I still have my faults and I still have, it's not like they're completely different. It's just their life is more publicized, right?
Yes.
So I look at Andy and Ed, in particular. And I'm like, these people are my idols. But then you meet them and it's like, no, these people are like my friends,
Mm.
and they're going out there and doing the right thing and like putting themselves out there and teaching other people how to do it. And it's just that's who they are and that's what they want to do with their lives. So they'll make sacrifices in other areas in order to create that incredible story for themselves that we all idolize. And I think it's really funny the first time when I went to a business convention and I was like going to shake the hand of one of the guys who made like quadruple my income. And I was just like shaking, literally like, oh my gosh, it's Jay White. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay. And he's like, hey, like, how's it going? How can I help you in your business? And they're just so kind and generous and they just want to go out and help other people. Whereas the stigma is a lot of people who are wealthy or a lot of people who are, at a higher level than you might be right now are, yeah, scary or like untouchable or they're not the same as us, but they are. And I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. So, how would you suggest that someone goes about marketing themselves when it comes to someone who's starting fresh in business or like just wants to get started and changing the way that people see them? So, like my family, when I first told them I was going to be a financial services broker, they were like, "But Alaina, you're a pastry chef." And I was like, "Yeah, not anymore though.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to do this other thing." So, what would you do for advising those people?
So the easiest answer is to literally just get started. Like 3.5 years ago, when I started posting consistently on social media, as I was talking about before, like I hadn't posted unless I was like on vacation. It was my birthday. I got married, like big things, right? Or if it was, hey, I'm at a sporting event, right? And so I just started posting, and I think a lot of my personal brand was developed on just what I was passionate about posting about, which was entrepreneurship, which was self-development, which was, just being around positive and like-minded people. And similar to what you had just mentioned is like, even I've struggled over the last couple of years that people know me as the digital marketer, but the people that really, really know me and the people that have been watching me for a while, like you are so much more than your right now project. Because what I tell
Mhm.
everybody is like, my digital marketing company could go away tomorrow,
Yeah.
but I built this Adam McChesney personal brand where I am a business coach. I also do my own podcast. I speak on stage. I own equity in 3 other companies. And so I now can go and whatever I start to have to do tomorrow, if that were to happen, I'm going to be on an elevated playing field because I built that personal brand. And so I think, again, a lot of people just overthink it, but do what comes natural or what you're passionate about. And one of the reasons why my digital marketing agency, I mean, I grew that from nothing to 7 figures in 15 months, which is unheard of, like in our space. And people ask me all the time, like, well, look at my stuff. I'm not promoting what I do with every single post.
Mhm.
90% of the time, plus, I actually don't talk about digital marketing at all, but I get people in the door or connected with me, whatever you want to call it. And then they just so happen to realize once I start providing them value, once I start connecting them to people that they need to be connecting with, once I start sending them business, putting them first, and then understanding that whatever I put out in the world is going to come back tenfold, that everything falls into place and grows.
Mhm.
Whereas most people think about the personal branding stuff is like, I got to show up every day and I got to post, 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 post. And for every one post I do, or for every 10 posts I do, I need a new client or I need X amount of dollars back. If you're thinking about it like that, it's not that it won't work that way because it will in certain industries, but you're thinking really, really short term.
Mhm. No, I just want to go back and bullet point all of that. Number one, being consistent in what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
as well as showing up consistently, like as who you are. We talked about that earlier as well. Like you don't just want to be like, this is who I am, and then they meet you and you're secretly just like, go away. Like I don't actually want to talk to you. You got to be authentic in the fact that you're putting yourself out there and going, hey, this is who I am. I like to educate people. I like to add value to them and that kind of stuff. So showing up for yourself consistently is really important. And being a consistent human is really important. Uh,
Mhm.
and then you talked about putting out there what you're passionate about. So what I did is I broke it down into my Instagram 12 squares. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, what can I do to show people who I am? If they're going to look at my profile, I get 9 or 12 squares, depending on their phone and what their
Yeah.
settings are and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I want someone to look at my 9 squares or my 12 squares and go, okay, this is who Alaina is. This is what
Mm.
she stands for. This is what she likes, and just be able to put myself out there. So like I'll have so many, I post a lot of videos of my dog, because I'm like, well, she's cute and I love her. And, I want to take her for walks, but that's also going, hey, I value fitness. I value
Mm.
my animals. I value my family. I value my coffee, like appreciate I appreciate my Starbucks, but I appreciate my Starbucks to the point where I got to interview Howard Behar, the president of Starbucks Coffee Company, who took Starbucks from, I think it was like 28 stores to 15,000 stores internationally. And so like I got to interview that guy because I used to work for his company. I love their core values. I love what they stand for. They want to give back to the community. They do like grounds for your garden and stuff like that. Like they'll give away their coffee grounds and like little things like that that they do for their staff and stuff too. That I'm just like, I like their culture and like what they do. So I'm okay with spending a little bit of extra money on having a good coffee because it's about the experience that I'm going to have when I go there, right? And like
Yeah.
people putting your name on a cup, like that's super important because then it's building rapport with you and stuff too. And they get to know you, they learn your drink, that kind of stuff. It's really different than when you go to, let's say, a Tim Hortons or um, whatever would be in the US. We're in Canada here, but at like Tim Hortons is just like next, next, next,
Transactional.
very transactional, right? So yes, you're going to pay less for it, but what's it going to look like, right? So what are you passionate about? Next, you talked about associations and how you're putting out positive associations and that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden I ran into Dave Meltzer in freaking like airport and I'm like, that's Dave Meltzer, and I'm like, hi. And so I sent him a message. He has no idea who I am, but you know
Yeah.
what? He sent me, here's who I would interview because I'm not gonna, like, he's next level. So I'm like, okay, I know he's busy. I'm not gonna bug him. But hey, Dave, who would you suggest I interview on my podcast? And he gave me a couple names. I interviewed them, like that's really cool. And then maybe they'll come back and be like, hey, you need to sit down and talk to Alaina because she's, doing the right thing. And then you get in front of that person, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's compound effect.
Doing what comes natural, you said as well. I love that because there's so many people out there that are just like trying to force the stuff down your throat. And it's like, guys, I don't want your supplements. I've got a guy right now who's like, you need me to be your coach. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go to yoga, bro. Like, I'm not going to the gym right now. I'm like, if you knew my story and what I just went through, I'm good. Like, I know how to get back into shape. I know how to be where I want to be. I just need a minute, like let me ease myself back in. Uh,
Mm.
so doing what comes naturally to you is amazing. And then you said, ooh, my voice is cracking. Sending them business and providing value, I think are very, very important too. That was the last two things that you touched on there. And that's why I love that you do a podcast as well. And I'd love for you to talk about your podcast a little bit more. But sending them business is huge. So I love referral partnerships. I love value adds. I love throwing it out there and being like, hey, I'm going to do a contest. So, like last month, I did a contest on like people who told me what their word of the year was. So mine is contribution. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, what am I doing in my 12 months of contribution? That's my focus of the year. And then I just said, hey, what's your word of the year? And I'm going to draw it for one of my books. And so I got to send a lady
Awesome.
named Caroline one of my books and just go, okay, well, thank you for participating, but I hope that this also adds value to you. And if you aren't a reader, well, give it to someone who is, because not everyone reads books, but it's
Mm,
just putting myself out there and going, here's my story. And what's helped me is learning, like, what's my word of the year? What's my focus this year? And last year it was simplicity. And then this year it's contribution. So it's just changing that mindset of, okay, I simplified what I needed to do. And then I'm putting it out there that this year is my year of contribution. It's doing events that are going to give back to charities and, putting myself out there more on my podcast, being really consistent with my growth and that kind of stuff. That's going to get me to where I want to be. And I think that people don't necessarily think of that stuff very often. So
mm.
I love that that was one of your points there. That's cool. So tell us about your podcast. What got you started in podcasting?
Yeah, so I obviously podcasting a part of the personal brand. So I started that and launched that podcast in February of 2022. So literally just came up on my 2 years, just had my 100th episode go out.
Cool.
And for the first 100 episodes, it was called Entrebrewer. So I thought of trying to find a creative way to talk about entrepreneurship, right? And so I thought, okay, we have entrepreneurs and everybody, even though they might have like the same type of business or in the same industry or the same whatever, they all have a unique story, and every beer that's brewed has its own unique story as well. So I came up with that name, and it served its purpose, right? So it got me to where I was at, and then I just rebranded to Builders of Authority. So Builders of Authority is my group mastermind, my course, my events on the personal branding side of my business. And so from a branding standpoint, it just made more sense to rebrand a lot of the same concepts. So I'm bringing on and interviewing entrepreneurs, just learning their story and understanding, how they got to where they're at today, but not just how they got to where they're at today, but where are they going and how did personal branding play a role in that? And some of the, out of box and creative things that people are doing in order to take their personal brand to the next level. So started to interview people. The first Builders of Authority podcast just went out today, guest wise, and have some really cool guests lined up here over the next couple of weeks that'll be coming out.
Very cool. I love that title too, Builders of Authority, because it's again taking personal ownership and going, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, this worked, but this is even better. It's the next generation of me,
Yeah.
I love that. My team used to be the gold diggers. And then as a financial advisor, people are like, gold diggers. Like, no, I'm like, goal, GOAL. But everyone was getting it confused. And I was like, I can't do it. I got to change it. So
Yep.
I went with relentless leadership development. And I was like, that's just so much more on point for me, because I'm like, okay, there's no such thing as being absolutely relentless in the pursuit of that best self, because once you hit it, you keep going, right? And
Mhm.
I got it from Tim Grover's book,
Yeah.
Relentless, talking about like Michael Jordan's story and how he's just this absolute cleaner who like mops the floor of everyone else. And I'm like, okay, well, how do we get to that level? And then it came to me like Pursuit of Relentless. And I was like, this is the pursuit of relentless. And that's why I named the podcast Pursuit of Relentless. And my corp is Relentless Leadership Development, because I'm like, I just want people to grow into that best version of themselves. And there's so much more to me as a person and my company as a brand, that I can do if I, switch it up a little bit and put it out there that I'm going to be this different version of myself. So I love that. Um, we are running out of time, but I definitely want people to get more access to you. And also, I love your logo. I'm like, 'cause
Thank
I
you.
have an A name as well. So I'm like, I love that. So where do people get access to you, and maybe a couple closing tips that you'd leave them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest social media platform to get a hold of me on is Instagram. My handle is Adam L. McChesney. You can type in Adam McChesney on Facebook and find Builders of Authority as well. We have a free Facebook group there, or you can go over to my website, which is adammcchesney.com. It'll have all my different social links, different links to some of the companies that I own and operate, such as Hype Digital, which is the digital marketing agency. And then in some final tips, I think the biggest thing, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but is literally just get started. Doesn't matter if it's your personal brand, if it's your side hustle, if it's hey, I'm going full time into entrepreneurship. Most people, as we related to with the Ben Newman story, is they give themselves this perception that they can't do something or that they don't have the tools needed. Anytime I've thought that in my life, I've made a relaying bad decision on top of it. So I've been like, oh, I need to hire a coach, or I need a business partner, or I need X, Y, and Z, right? And those have all been great learning lessons. But at the end of the day, we put other people and other things on pedestals, being like, they have it all figured out, or that's going to solve all my problems. And then we engage in that situation and realize, wow, okay, I probably could have done that on my own, or maybe I could have hired that coach, but it would have been better to do some of these things beforehand. Just give yourself the opportunity to see if you can go and do it on your own. Take the chance, bet on yourself, because otherwise you're going to live with regret, and that's no fun.
Oh, that's gold right there, man. Yeah, taking that chance or betting on yourself is so important. And not enough people are doing it. So I'm really grateful for you coming on the show and telling your story today and telling people how you became successful and what they need to do to build their own successful business as well. So thanks again for being here. And guys, if you got a ton of value like I did today, I know I show my notes all the time, but I'm like, look at
Love it.
just write it down, because it just will remind you, and go back through this episode and take notes on it and just go, okay, what can I do to implement these things into my business today? Because if someone is still an entrepreneur in the making, right, someone who's still maybe part-time in their business, or, starting out in their business, then it's taking advice from people who've done it and people who've been able to scale it and go, okay, I don't have to come up with all of these brand new ideas. It's studying the people who've done it that will help you get to where you want to be. So take that advice and just really run with it. I will post everything that we talked about today in the show notes and Adam's website and whatnot, so you guys can reach out to him. But again, thank you so much for being on the show. This is a holistically grown podcast. So if you got value, and I know you did, make sure you share it with a friend or share it on your social media. That's how we grow this business. And I'm super grateful for you guys listening in. And I hope that you got at least 1 or 2 points that you're like, I really want to go implement that right now into my business. So that's it for today. But Pursuit of Relentless is signing out.